Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a conversation with, and I am your humble host, Floyd Marshall Jr. But before we get to the good stuff, make sure you hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel and the Apple Podcast because we love bringing you phenomenal guests like the one that I have with me today. Today, we are joined by none other than Mikaela Phillips. She is an actress, she is a producer, she is a trailblazer. So when you look up that word multi hyphenate, this young lady is staring back at you. Originally from Australia, transplant to Los Angeles with her amazing mom, Chris Phillips. This is like a knockout duo team of just phenomenal creativity, and it is such an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. I had the distinct pleasure of talking with your mom
You
on the
did, yeah.
podcast a couple of weeks ago, so I'm really happy to have the daughter Mikaela Phillips on a conversation with. So Mikaela, welcome, and how are you?
Thank you, Floyd. I'm going great, thank you. How are you?
I am here. I am here. And, as usual, sometimes things happen. We had some slight technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. But here's the thing, if you're in this business, that is going to happen. But I am so
Mhm.
glad that you are able to join us. So we're going to get this thing started. So, Michaela, I usually like to start it off by asking all of my guests, how did you get into this business?
Very good question. It's always been obviously a passion and something to follow, but I've always just been surrounded by the arts. Like you said, you had the pleasure to speak to my mom, who's also in the industry as well. So just growing up was always surrounded by arts, and that not just being film and TV mediums, that being painting, that being theater, like all different forms. So it's always been a passion. And as I've gotten older, I just obviously pursued it more professionally than just as more of a time, something on the side or hobby.
Okay, so you started acting at what age?
I'd say around like six. Was like my first theater big production in Australia, and
Mhm.
it's kind of went on from there.
Okay, so then after that, what did you do? So how did you get into producing? How did that happen?
Mm. I kind of, it's so funny. I don't want to say like I fell into it, but in a way I did because at the time I didn't really know that's what a producer was doing and those
Mhm.
responsibilities and capabilities. So I was at AfterBuzz TV, the world's largest network with owned by E Entertainment's Maria Menounos. And I was doing content there as like a host and on some of their panels. And I obviously wanted to run with that opportunity and did. And was talking to one of the producers and was like, how can I kind of, turn this into something a little more, I guess, lucrative or for myself or
Mhm.
leverage the opportunity to go a bit more in a direction I may personally want to go. And it was at the time they had where it was called spotlight ons, where you would interview similar to how you are right now, sitting down with someone, an individual, and it'd be a one-on-one in studio type of interview. So I had to go out. I had to procure the talent. I had to talk to the agents, the managers, pitch, sell, all of that. And it was then once I started doing that successfully that I started realizing this is a form of producing. So it's digital content, but I am making sure I have all the storyboarding down, all the questions and the background of who I'm interviewing. I'm liaising with the managers and agents. I'm also looking at the post side with our producers here in studio to then promote it or when will it be up and airing and streaming. So it was kind of just seeing this is a few of the skills that you would have producing. Obviously, that shifts and the dynamics change depending what you're working on. And that's kind of just how it began for me.
Wow. So what has been one of the more challenging things you faced as a producer?
That's a good question. I think, like you and I were saying just before, you do sometimes get your hurdles. It could be something technical difficulty. It could be something with your casting. So there are a few things you can come across. But I would say something that probably stands out to me would be probably I would say like doing something during the pandemic.
Mhm.
Obviously, we all are aware of the situation of what was, but for the industry itself, it was very much a time where we had a lot of momentum at that point up until then, and a lot of things raring to go. And then it was like, no, halt. No, we don't know how to handle this situation. We can't have people, intimate scenes. We can't have people just on set in general, and no real landscape of how to tackle that.
Mhm.
So during that time, Australia was doing pretty well actually on that side of things. And the opportunity to go back home and film there presented itself. And I think that was a challenge working during that time and going back and then coming back here.
So oh gosh, I can't remember. I am so sorry. I cannot remember the name of the web series that you guys ended up filming
Mhm.
back, because that's what you were supposed to film here, but you ended up filming it back in Australia.
Yeah, so no, so Counterplay, that's the one.
Counterplay.
That was
Yes.
that was shot in in Melbourne, fully in
Okay.
Australia. But no, the one that was supposed to shoot here was actually the feature film, the movie Madison and the Happiness Jar.
Okay. Okay.
So that was meant to be originally all set and intended to film in the US. It has
Mhm.
that very country appeal. So something that gets the landscapes you might find in a small town America, very quaint, open roads, plantation homes, retro cars, kind of the whole shebang like that. And luckily we were able to pick up production in Australia for that one and did a really good job. I think we had obviously US actors that were there and a lot of our crew that we were able to give opportunities as well there. But yeah, we pulled it together pretty well, I think.
So wait a minute. So now how did that happen? You're supposed to shoot in LA. You end up having to go back to Australia. What did that do as far as production costs
Mm,
were concerned? Because, you had to add in all of the travel, you had to get the talent
mhm.
to Australia. So what did that do to the bottom line as far as the budget is concerned? And as a producer,
Yeah.
what did that do to you as far as your psyche is concerned? Because
Mhm.
again, you're adding money to the bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, so it wasn't necessarily set to film in LA, but film in the US. So
Mhm,
obviously, we all know California is a very more higher tier of place to film in terms of permits and stuff like that. So obviously, it wouldn't have been in California. It probably would have been somewhere small town, maybe Texas, maybe the South, something like that, to give that appeal of what the genre and the story required. With
mhm.
that being said, we were able to replicate and I guess pick up some amazing locations in Oz that did provide that background for where the film had to be set. uh, Obviously we were going back, so we're kind of the ones steering the ship and leading the way, so that was something that was obviously accounted for. But luckily we did have a lot of obviously actors in Australia, American and Australian,
Mm,
that were already actively working on different productions at that time. So for example, things that were shooting out there were like the Elvis movie with Tom Hanks and Austin Butler, and then also Dwayne Johnson's NBC series. So we did have a nice melting pot of local talent and then obviously talent who was from the US to kind of give us a good cast dynamic. And then, of course, being them local and already there, that accounts into the budgeting of that. As a producer, though, to kind of navigate that question that you asked, it was definitely a real shift. Absolutely a real shift. Like I said, it was a time of uncertainty, a few things of question marks, but I'm a big believer in you got to go out there and just do something. You have to make it happen. And we tackled it like we would tackle anything else, really. So it shifted the dynamics to work in that type of scenario, but it didn't shift like my momentum or motivation.
oh, okay. So producing both in Los Angeles and Australia or the United States,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
major differences do you find in the two between producing here and
Right.
producing back home?
I think there's a lot more support in the US, I would personally say.
Mhm,
I know quite a few people who have definitely shot some amazing things in Oz. Obviously, I have too. And that's not to say we don't have the background of talent or the backgrounds of locations or anything like that, or the skills, people who have the skill set there. I guess in a terms of, when you are a filmmaker or a producer or whatever, you are looking for that backing, whether it be financial or whether it be press, like something that you're looking for, right? It gives you the incentive to film in a place. Rebates, all of that. So I think as a whole, the US is a little more opportunistic in that sense for filmmakers. You can go and film in a small town, maybe even somewhere like even in Nebraska or Midwest, and your tax incentives are going to be absolutely amazing. And then you can film in somewhere like beautiful California or New York, where it may be more pricey on the budget side, but look at the backdrop you're getting, and if it's essential to your storyline and works into your budget, why wouldn't you?
okay. So now you Counterplay, when you and your mom had initially shopped
Hmm.
at in Australia, you guys weren't getting many takers.
Hmm.
And then you come here and it gets picked up on Amazon,
Hmm.
and then you're getting calls from
Yeah.
Australia because it got picked up on Amazon. So can you
Hmm.
talk about that a little bit, because that
Yeah.
kind of ties into what you just talked about as far as the support is concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, counterplay was something that definitely broke the mold, I would say, within Australia. It was something that was a little unorthodox and hadn't been done. It hadn't been seen that something of a commercial worldwide level of something like a show we'd see come out of maybe the UK, like a Bridgerton, or something come out of the US like a Gossip Girl that's loved and that people are just absolutely drawn to, because you're seeing into a world that most people don't really live in, right? Whether it's the glitz and the glam, the exuberant wealth, whatever it may be, something that pulls your audience in. So something like that had never been touched and done out of Australia. We're very well known for obviously the outback and promoting a lot of that Australiana. So with that being said, when you're doing something that's a little bit different or a little bit of a shift, you do get a little bit of that pushback. And I would say that was kind of where it came from, and the lack of maybe support there, which was, this hasn't been really done before. We don't know A, how it will do, B, how do we kind of get behind this, and C, is this how we want to platform Australia? I think a lot of the perception was. So yeah, you do get embraced a lot of the time from outside of your country, and it was beautiful to have Amazon kind of get behind that, and then have the Nine Network in Australia get behind that too.
So who wrote that? Who wrote Counterplay?
Chris did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she wrote, like, obviously created and wrote. I did obviously have an integral part in storyline, and as that
Mhm.
would shift and move forward as a producer, and then yeah, and then obviously I was a series regular and produced as well. So wearing a few hats, and it was very busy.
Okay, so I guess when you started walking down the street in Australia, you were recognized. What was that like?
It did get to a point where obviously, yeah, we were, airing on national worldwide television, and I was going to X amount of events a week, or in the local newspapers and the press and magazines. So it was an interesting time. It was a nice thing, I think, to just be recognized for your work more than recognized for your face.
Mm,
I think when you're just like excited about being your face or your profile, it comes from a more egotistical standpoint, which I don't navigate from that place. But
mhm.
you do have a lot of perks that come with those things, and it was just like an amazing thing, honestly, just to experience, and with a lot of my cast as well.
Okay, nice. So the transition from actress to producer,
Hmm.
was that a difficult transition, or was it kind of symbiotic, or because you were doing both of them together at the
Hmm.
same time?
It was a little bit of that. It was that synergy you said, like very symbiotic, because I had been doing obviously the digital content. So going into the TV arena was still treading water a little and finding my footing, but at the same time, it wasn't completely out of my depth, right, and
Mhm.
out of my range. So it was a nice, I think, parallel to be able to be okay. I'm in the scenes, or I'm literally on every day of filming. If I'm not in it myself, the scene, I'm behind the scenes, sometimes obviously overlapping at the same time. So it allowed me to have, I think, a good overall perspective and hands-on approach to being there for every single shot, every single scene, every day of shooting. And I think that's where, if you are the type of person who is diligent to be hands-on and to be actively a producer, not just, oh, I'm a producer and I got the credit and I got a title, but I'm not doing all that much, but to actively be working and doing it, I think that's where you find a good synergy.
Oh, okay. Nice. So being a woman and a producer
Hmm.
and an actress, have you ever had to exert pressure on a film set because someone did not take you seriously? Now, normally you get that if it's a female director,
Hmm.
but being a female producer and an actress, have you ever had to exert pressure, or basically say, well, this is what I do, so you need to do this? Have you ever had to
Right.
do that because you got pushed back for being a woman, and being a young lady at that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a fair question. I would say, Luckily, I don't think it's happened too much like while you're physically filming or while you're physically handling something like that,
Mhm.
and in the throes of production and filming. I think where that comes into play, at least for me, it has been is either on the pre-production side or the post. Um, I mean, aside from even things that I've now like done and worked on, when you're having discussions with people for even independent things, right? Me to freelance and be joining someone else's production as a producer and for those capabilities and skills, yes, you do get a bit of I don't know really know of what I would call it, but maybe pushback, or a bit of a like a derogatoriness in a sense.
Mhm.
So, and it does come with maybe an age thing, but you can look at the skill set that someone has, and whether someone's 5 years younger, 20 years older, if the talent's there, I think the talent's there. And so you do come across that every now and again. I would say more times it's with males than females, just the nature of the beast. And it being a bit more, well, what exactly do you do? Or
Mm.
like, do you think you could handle this? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't know if a man was sitting opposite, if that would be the same questions that were asked. So it is a bit of an unfortunate things at times because you do see people with maybe lesser experience or just because they're a bud and they're a mate obviously get pushed forward for something ahead of you. But that's why you really have to be diligent and just keep grinding the pavement and put the control back in your hands and do as much I think as you can for yourself and drive those projects forward.
Yeah, because I interview a lot of women,
Mm-hmm.
and they're stellar in what they do. They're
Mm-hmm.
very experienced in what they do. And to a person, they all talk about having to basically give their qualifications on set
Mm-hmm.
because someone will come on and say, well, I'm not used to that, and I'll take it from here when it's your set.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that interesting. That
I've seen it firsthand, with
mm,
other females, like you said, maybe sometimes a director or someone else. I think as I've navigated, like, because normally I have been at least been able to be a part of like the pre-production, right? For most
mhm,
things I've worked on. It's not like I'm generally ever just walking onto something. Here's this girl coming out of nowhere. Who is she? Oh, she's producer. Okay. It's normally been people have met me from conception of the project to then final. But you do sometimes, yes, you do, you have to kind of validate almost what you've done. So if someone's a little on the fence or someone's a little like, oh yeah, so like how did your last project go, or what have you done, and you're kind of like, yeah, well, I've got credits across XYZ streaming platforms, some of the biggest in the world. I've also done this and that, proven success in this genre, right? So you do kind of have to give, like you said, a little bit of the resume or a little bit of a, yeah, this is me, are you good with it? Kind of talk and approach sometimes.
wow. See, that's something that men don't normally have to deal with, because as you said, that's not a question. If I were on the set, that
Hmm.
you would ask me that. Well, now let me see. I'm going to back that up,
Okay, back it up.
because that's not necessarily true, because this industry is a white male dominated industry.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it is. And someone like me could
Mm-hmm.
have a very long list of credits,
Mm-hmm.
and someone other than the person that I look like may say, "Well, who are you and how did you get that?"
Right.
So you get a lot of pushback on that end as well. But
Hmm.
I guess the thing that we just have to keep doing is keep doing what we're doing,
Right.
and
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, yeah.
That's
So
all you really can
please.
do,
Mhm.
is just there's going to be, for every person that's like that, you're going to meet the one that isn't.
Right.
And so, there are people who aren't obviously in that mindset, or that male, female, whatever ethnicity, diversity, orientation, they like identify, whatever, right, within the landscape, just humanity to like, and human to human
Mhm.
interaction, you do find obviously the ones that are completely behind you and will back you and do see what you're capable of and the skill set, without the validation, without the questioning, without the talking down, whatever it may be. And I think one of the people that definitely has been that, and is also a white male, we'll throw that in there, is a producer I have worked with previously, and just came back to me recently. We've been having a few conversations, and was like, I'm doing a second film. I'm doing another film, and I'd like to have you on board. And that was a really nice moment for me, because not only did I have a good synergy with the person the first time, and we've obviously become friends since that production for a few years now, but someone coming back to me because they do know I'm capable of the job, whether a male or a female or whatever, just to say, hey, I know you can get XYZ done. And that's what it's based on. That's it. I want you part of the team. I know you're capable. I know you'll execute. Let's go make a movie and let's go do something amazing.
Yeah, and that should be, at the end of the day, that should be the bottom line,
Mm-hmm.
because for me, I call films products, because
Mm-hmm.
that's how I view them,
That's
because you're making a product to take it to the market, to
fair.
sell
Mm-hmm.
it to viewers,
Yes.
to
To brand it.
visually
Yes.
consume. So if that is the end game, and especially if you have investors and you're talking about studio level work,
Mm-hmm.
I want the best people on the job. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what you look like, or
That's it.
what gender you
Right.
are. I don't care about your pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
Can you direct? Can you produce? Can you keep the budget in line? And
Yes.
can you get me out of here in the prescribed number of shoot days that
Right.
we have?
Yeah. I mean, it's all it should come down to. It really is. And of course, there's nothing wrong with, someone putting in like a friend or a mate, of course.
Mhm.
I always try to at least give those opportunities to people that I know that would be capable and that are also someone I know, of course, if there's something that fits. But I think, yeah, when it's unfortunately just a preferential treatment and not just, oh, this person is a good fit for the role. And of
Mhm.
course, like they have the skills and we should bring them on in some capacity. When it's just, oh yeah, it's just Bob who I know, we'll just throw Bob in. What's Bob done? So it's like I've had these sit downs. I have like with quite a few people, and they've had amazing budgets, and they've just been like, oh yeah, okay, well send me what you have. And it is, I gotta say, it sounds terrible, and I hate to sound like just like the female playing the female card or anything like that, but it is majority of the time it's all men. And if that's not the side you get, then you get the side that's very more the flirtatious side, where it's like, do you actually mean business or is there an agenda here? So you have to really play like a fine line there between, are you taking me seriously or is there something else here?
Mm. Is that exhausting?
I don't know if I'd say it's exhausting, but I'd say it's irritating.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's a little grating because obviously you go into it, any profession, let's say I'm like the number one salesperson right now.
Mhm.
I go into that hoping to make a deal, right? So I go into a meeting hoping to join the film or join a TV project or whatever it is. Same if I'm working in sales or any other job. I go in hoping to make the deal, hoping to make the sale. And when you get there and like it's more of like, oh, so like personal questions, or it's more things that kind of skew from really where the direction of the conversation should be going. You kind of are sitting there like trying to, one, reroute it back to that, and two, sitting there in the back of your mind being like, yeah, this is probably just going to be a waste of time. This is going to be a conversation that goes nowhere, and it's unfortunate.
Wow. So let
Mhm.
me ask you a question. We kind of veered a little to the left, but
Yeah,
I want to continue with this, because when
sure.
you have a situation such as that, have you ever decided, well, you know what, they do what they do and they say what they say,
Hmm.
but the project sounds amazing.
Hmm.
Have you ever said, you know what, although this sounds amazing and it sounds like a phenomenal opportunity, I'm going to walk away from it because of your innuendos and your conduct, because I think that if this is how you are now, this is going to continue and
Mm.
possibly escalate when we hit set. Have you ever had to do that?
I don't think it's come to that far. It hasn't been anything too far along or too advanced, I guess, to say it have had to really halt the brakes. It's
Mhm.
just been things that are still in a polite setting or even in a group setting, but they can be still very right with that underlying kind of notion.
Okay.
So thankfully not, because obviously, as we know, a lot of women do experience that, and that's something to be taken seriously in this industry or for any industry that being. And no, thankfully not. But the thing is, you do have to, like I said, you have to approach it from a different perspective then at that point. When you start seeing the wheels are kind of clocking that way, you're already like, okay, I need to route this some form to get us back on track, or like I said, that right then and there, you're kind of like, yeah, I'll send maybe my resume after this, or they'll ask for whatever from here. But you kind of know in your mind that it's probably not going to eventuate.
Well, okay.
Mm.
Well, awesome. Good. I'm glad I asked those questions because I was curious about some of those things.
Yeah, no,
Um, so your mom,
yeah.
phenomenal writer and director. What is the one thing that she's taught you about this business that resonates with you the most?
That's a good question. I think I would have to say it's probably even more so not just pertaining to just the industry. I think
Mm,
something that you can take into any profession, like even if tomorrow I was not actively in film and TV and decide to pursue something else, I think the one thing would be the resilience and the work ethic. And it's funny because I just got asked something about this the other day about like, oh, how do you stay motivated? And I feel like that ties into this being that some people just don't have like necessarily always the option to not be. And I think if you're someone who can deal with whatever life throws at you or whatever the job throws at you and still get up the next day and be just as resilient or have a plan in place or just basically ready to tackle it, right? And kind of adult, um, that's kind of your biggest weapon in a sense. So I think that's something that she's instilled in me is that work ethic and that drive and that even no matter what's going on, if you just keep your eye on the prize, stay focused, and just kind of drive it home, you know?
yeah. Um, I was listening to an interview, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I I heard you say a lot of people don't like hard work because it's dressed up in overalls.
I don't know if I said that. I don't think I did. I don't
I
recall.
was I think I was reading a comment. I said, "Ooh, that's good. I got to talk about that." Yeah, I
Well, I
think it
don't
was
want
in
to
one of
take credit for
your
it if I
bad
don't
magazines.
remember
I'm
saying it.
trying to read. I think it because I was reading some more, and I was like, "Ooh, okay, Michaela." Um, because you talked about the fact that it was you. Yes, it was because I was reading your article. But you were
Okay.
talking about that because you were saying how this is not an easy business, and it's not.
Hmm.
And most people, once they get in it, they're looking at it from, I guess, an airplane view, and they're
Mm.
looking at the nice parts of it, but they're
Hmm.
not looking at the stuff
For
underneath.
sure.
And so the question that I wanted to ask you was the fact that overnight success takes a long time.
Hmm.
So what keeps you motivated and moving forward? You kind of talked about it in the
Sure.
last question I asked you, but what keeps you motivated and moving forward when you hear no?
Oh, well, that you just gave me the answer right there, Floyd. That is what it is. um, every time or anytime there ever is a no or some sort of a not right now, or you're not a fit, whatever it may be, right? Whatever the words are, but essentially it being a no, mate, that just fuels me so much more. It really does. It puts a fire under me. And I don't know if it comes from a place of just being wanting to be like, no, I'm going to prove them wrong, and a little bit of that, but it definitely just makes you just want to keep going. That being said, that's obviously a great driving force, but we don't always want to just keep having a driving force just from rejection. So other than that, I mean, what keeps me going is obviously a passion. I do love the industry. I love what I do. I want to tell stories. I want to uh, have stuff out there that people can escape to or relate to, whatever it is that you're kind of creating. And we need that, we really do. If you look at to the landscape of films or even TV shows for that matter, anything that has been made probably say in the last 15 years as opposed to what was made 25 years ago, there is a bit of a decline in the sense of the turnover, I would say. You look at films that were all throughout the 80s to early 2000s, there's a plethora. And you kind of look at like what's in the last X amount of years and you go, yeah, of course there's been some great films. Of course there's been some favorites or Oscar winning or whatever. But um, I feel like films are definitely and TV shows are made more now to have, oh, it's a tentpole film, it's a tentpole production. We're spending 10 million per episode on this TV series, and it's like amazing. What an amazing budget. We all wish we had that. But when you're going into it just to kind of be the record breaker or to be, we have 5 A-listers on this, that doesn't guarantee a success. And people really want to watch something that they can just escape to, relate to, fall in love to. and all those things. So I feel like I wish storytelling would come back a little bit more to that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you can kind of see what's the word I'm looking for? People are tired
Mm,
of the tempo movies. And if the last couple of Marvel films did not do well,
mm,
they didn't do well at all. And I think people are really looking for that 10 to 50 million dollar film.
hmm.
Now they're not putting a monetary number on it, but they're looking for that film that is a really good solid film, like you said, that you
Yeah.
could sit down on the weekend. Like
Yeah.
my wife and myself, we like to sit on the couch, curl up, and watch a good film. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to see five A-listers. I need to see a good story.
That's it. Yes. Yes.
And Netflix, the gentleman that is in charge of, I can't remember what he's in charge of, but they just hired this guy over at Netflix. I'm sorry, I'm calling you guy because I can't remember your name. I read the article, and he is really honing in on independent films and independent
Hmm.
filmmakers. So he's definitely talking about having a
Right.
shift come into film because you can't have us on independent film level and then $500 million films.
Mm.
There definitely needs to be something.
There needs to be a little middle ground. And it's, yeah, I mean, if you look at like, some of the old classics there. Okay, for example, right, perfect example, Anyone But You, right, was just
Mhm,
probably one of the last year, I think it was, yeah, one of the biggest films to come out in a while. Obviously the press was absolutely insane, very smartly done. But it was being called like one of the biggest or best rom-coms in years, and I was like, yeah, like it's a great film, and I actually know like one or two of the people that were, part of it. But
mhm.
there's no reason why that couldn't have been done already another 5 times or 10 times. So when you look at it like that, you're like, yeah, I mean, look at all of the films that came before that and paved the way. Look at the Sleepless in Seattle's. Look at the You've Got Mail. Look at the it could happen to you. Like there's so many. I mean, we don't even need to. Cinderella Story. Like there's so many, like all different age groups as well, where we've seen them come and go. And there's no reason why that can't be made. I mean, at one point Hollywood was turning out maybe half a dozen of those a year,
Mhm.
maybe a dozen. I mean, I can't say, but so yeah, when you see one that comes out like that and it's got this big support and such this big commotion about it, you're like, yes, great film, you did a good job, amazing. But for me, I sat back and I was a bit like, yeah, there's no reason why we couldn't have made those
Yeah.
beforehand, or why someone can't do that now tomorrow either.
Yeah, and the gentleman, he just won an Oscar for the screenplay that he wrote, and I saw this movie, and again, I can't remember the name of it. Wow, that's unbelievable. But he talked about, and that movie was so good. The screenwriter actually was kind of tired of how movies were going, so he made this
Hmm.
movie, and it was just basically, excuse my French, a fuck you to the system. But
Okay.
they absolutely loved the script.
Hmm.
They loved it, and it was so stereotypical. It was everything that's wrong with film,
Mm.
but all the white executives loved it, and they actually greenlit it. And the worse that he kept making it, the more they loved it. And he ended up, no, it was a book, but he ended up calling the book "Fuck It."
Okay.
And and they were like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's what I'm gonna call it." And he was operating under this pseudonym because he couldn't be himself because they wanted this so-called street gangster type, and they just ate it up. The
Mm.
gentleman won for writing that screenplay. It was a phenomenal movie. And he stood on the stage and said, if you can make one $200 movie, $200 million movie,
Mm.
you can make 20 $10 million movies.
Right. Yes.
Why
Yes.
not? I'm going to find out the name of that film
No, I
because
know what you're talking about. When you mentioned the quote now, I have seen that. And I know what you're talking about. So yeah, I mean, exactly right. There's no reason why anyone can't. If you think about the finance of a budget like that and you
Mhm.
look at the trajectory, yeah, you could fit. numerous stories, numerous jobs, obviously for people, and all those things, and numerous ways to tell multiple stories, you know, and represent multiple voices. So yeah, there definitely is a bit of a divide, almost, maybe, in that sense, because between what people are, it's not even people. I mean, there's so many storytellers, writers, directors, producers out there that definitely want to probably tell their stories, and you don't get necessarily the platform, the opportunity, right? So let's say the decision makers, right? There's a bit of a divide, I'd say, then between that and the average person. Whether that's a consumer and like an audience, or whether that's even still a filmmaker who is also a consumer. No matter what it is, the scale there, that's where I would say the divide is, you know?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's talk about really quickly the type of producer you are, because normally when people say producer, they say,
Mhm.
oh, producer, but there are different types. You have the executive
Mhm.
producer, producer, supervising producer, field producer,
Mhm.
creative producer. Now, which one fits you more, would you say?
I would say somewhere between maybe like supervising and just producer. As being said earlier, obviously, you know, I'm very hands on, so I am there. I am like someone that will be on the ground. So when you have a producer who's either put in the capital as an EP, or someone who's obviously then doing your line production, line producing, which is a completely different thing again,
Mhm.
they're not generally people that may be on the ground or on the location or in the studio, wherever you are, day in, day out. So that's kind of where then I come into it. And obviously being just, you know, I've had to wear so many hats.
Mhm.
So being able to then navigate, with various departments, that also comes in handy to a degree too.
Oh, wow. The name of the movie is American Fiction. Jeffrey Wright was the main character.
Okay. Yes.
If you haven't seen it, it is an absolutely amazing, amazing movie. I highly recommend it. I
No,
was
no, I
not paid
appreciate
for that.
it. No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I was like, that's going to bother me all night unless I find the name of that movie.
No, you're good.
Um,
It would bother me too.
yeah, we're almost done because I don't want to keep you all night. But
You're okay.
I I was listening to an interview that you did, and two names keep popping up.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask you about them. Two actors, and both just amazing people.
Yeah.
Melissa McCarthy and Nicolas Cage, who
Yeah.
I absolutely love them. What is it about the two of them that you want to work with them so much? What is it about them?
Well, I guess starting with Melissa, um, obviously the most in your face, right, is just her personality. That's what she's known for. That's what she's made a career for, and rightfully so. I'm so glad that she's been able to transition from her days of Gilmore Girls to, obviously now who she's become and such a household name. So I think someone like her, the drive for me to work with someone obviously is a female who's been able to defy the odds in a few different ways for her profile and her experience. And then obviously there are a few things that I would like to tap into more on the comedic side
Mhm.
that I haven't necessarily been able to explore too far. It's been mostly saying like more of a drama genre or a thriller or different things like that. So being able to then switch gears to a comedic side and someone like her at the helm would be an absolute dream casting and an absolute dream to work with. So I guess that's the perspective of that for me. And then for Nicholas, I'm like Nick, like I know him. And then for
Well, you know,
Nick, you know me
Nick.
on Nick Cage. We go way back, you and I.
You know, me and Nick.
Listen, the next interview you and I do, hopefully I am on a name basis. Let's put that out there.
Okay, we're going to
But
put that into the universe. I'm actually reading a book called Manifestation right now.
love it, love it. There you go. So I think Nick would like it too. There you go.
Mhm.
But in all seriousness, I mean, the career he's had, obviously coming from a family as well, like himself, where it's kind of, I would want to say like in the DNA, in the genes, it's obviously a passion throughout the Coppola as well, kind of clan. And then his work, like I've seen probably nearly every single film of his, I would say, from everything from Con Air and Face Off to the what's it? Oh, the Last Witch, or not the Last Witch, the Season of the Witch,
Mhm.
and the one he did with the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Like he has such a variety and variant, and then he even has like more of his thriller genres that I've seen and different things. I think there's one with him and like John Cusack and Vanessa Hudgens that I've seen. I don't remember the title, but he's just got such a varied portfolio. and everything he does with such um grace and with such integrity to developing the character, portraying the character, and obviously being someone that is just so easy like that to work with in a sense too, and probably would be a pleasure to have around. So there's a lot of multifaceted areas to the question of him. But oh man, just at the end of the day, like he'd be awesome. I feel like I just would love to meet him, learn from him, and then also make a movie with him, you know?
Yeah. And you know what? He is absolutely fearless.
Mm-hmm.
He is one of the most fearless actors that I've ever seen. And he is not afraid to do really strange projects
Mm-hmm.
because I've seen him in a lot of films that would be considered B-level films,
Right.
but they are just phenomenal. We were watching one the other day where he died, went to hell, and came back because something
Mm-hmm.
happened to because the man had killed his daughter.
Okay.
Gosh, what was the name of that? But that movie was just
Yeah.
amazing, bloody as hell,
Yeah.
just and it just absolutely crazy. But then he also did one where he played, if I'm not mistaken, he played a college professor,
Okay. Yes,
and
I've seen that
it,
one. Yes.
that was where the people were having the strange dreams about him.
Yes.
He's just, and then of course Con Air with the bunny rabbit.
One of my favorite films is that. And then I was just thinking he was in Ghost Rider too, wasn't he?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
another great one. So
yes.
yeah, he if you look at the work he's done, you know, you do have some people. There was even someone that Mum and I were working with not too long ago, and they were like, "Nah, I wouldn't put Nicolas Cage on this." We were like, "What? Why?" They, I guess, personally didn't think maybe he had value for a production, or because, like you said, in some people's opinion, it might be, oh well, he's had, of course, a great career, but he's done a couple of these films, and I think that might be maybe where the perspective was from. But I mean, one, who are we to judge in a sense? Two, obviously, it's not stopping anyone else from working with him. So I thought that was a bit of an unusual thing for someone to kind of bring up. And then three, I mean, at the end of the day, the reason I think his taste and his projects as well is so varied, aside from any other reasons, is that he genuinely loves what he does. And any opportunity to play something maybe he hasn't played, or be a little more out of his depth, or just do something fun, quirky, stupid, or whatever, that's I think really where the incentive is for him, you know. And if we're all actors and storytellers and different things like that, that's really, I guess, what we should want and what we should be looking for.
Yeah, if you are looking, I would really love to know what that person was thinking when they wouldn't put Nicolas Cage. I don't even understand what that's all about because anything that he works on,
Mm,
you are going to get 150,000%.
mhm.
You are going to get a performance. So someone like that, in my opinion, is like a Michael Jordan on a
Okay.
basketball court because what he's going to do is he's going to pull up everyone else's performance
Mhm.
because he is that good and
Yeah.
he is that intense. The movie that I saw where he was the vampire, which was
Yes.
absolutely crazy. So and you get that quirkiness. And
Yeah.
again, he's not afraid to do a role that's not
Conventional.
traditional Hollywood.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah. He definitely is someone who I think doesn't really care than what people think. Like you're saying, if it's unconventional or
Mhm.
a little left of center. And I mean, you know, that's what he's known for in a sense too.
Yeah.
Like, so he's had, we should all be so lucky to have such a successful career, really. So people can say whatever they want. But at the end of the day, I mean, he's the one who's like actively working. He's the
Yeah.
one actively still with the fan crowd and actively with people like me sitting here going, oh, yeah, I'd love to work with him.
Mhm, mhm.
So he's doing something right.
Yeah, he's working, ladies and gentlemen.
That's it.
Keyword there, he's working.
Mhm.
But yeah, he's established. And when I was sitting there watching the last movie, and I have just a couple more questions,
Yeah,
but when I
you
was
do.
sitting there watching the movie with my wife, I was saying, see, this is someone who is so well established within himself that he will do a role like that and not care
Mhm.
if you like it or not, because he knows what he can bring, because he could do a low budget movie and
Mm,
then step on the set of $100 million film
that's
and feel
right.
comfortable in both places. So why would you not want to have someone on your set like that to bring that type of experience to your set?
Hmm.
Because it could only get better. But enough of that. Okay, Nicholas, we love you. And
That's it. All love.
Michaela wants to work with you. So if you happen to listen to this podcast, email her
Get in touch. That's
at,
right.
at MikalaaPhillips.com, give her a phone call. But let's talk about what you are currently working on. I am so excited about this. You and your mom are currently working on a book to screen adaptation
Hmm.
of the Magic
Wars.
War saga.
Yes. Magic Wars. That's it.
Can you share as much with us as you possibly can? Because I know you can't give too much away because you guys are in pre-production for that, or are
Yeah,
you
that's
actually
exactly
filming
right.
yet?
No, not filming yet. So
Okay.
you're 100% right. Still actively right now in the pre-production phase, and development, I guess you could say. But
Mhm.
yeah, actively now, moving forward with casting.
Ooh.
Locations are pretty much locked in. So filming, I guess, to take place in the next few months, probably towards the end of summer, just because obviously it's a bit sticky and hot in summer. It's a bit hard for people. And it probably will be more so on the Midwest or South side of the US that will be filming. So yeah, I mean, obviously I'm know the product super, super well. I've read the books back to front. I always joke that if there was ever like one of those, gets to the point, right? That's the goal where we are taking this and taking it all the way home, is that if you ever had one of those like variety or one of those like Entertainment Tonight type things where they do the content where you have like the cast or you have like the crew like answer questions, like almost thing, like one of those fun promotions. I think I would like nail everyone under the table with that. I have read that back and front. I know it. I've lived and breathed it for so many years, and it's an exciting time to be able to take that, like you said, from book to screen. So currently we are doing, it's a more of like a prequel, like an origin story, I guess you could say. It's more of a spin-off of the lead character Xavier, who is such a beloved character from the series and is an immortal. So it's kind of delving a little bit more into his specific storyline and what he's dealing with around that on a bit more of a supernatural and still fantasy level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're excited. I'm excited. I can't wait to see it. I'm going to actually have to pick up the books so I can read them myself because I love fantasy. That is my favorite genre
Oh,
of
yay.
books. I'm a nerd when it comes to books. I love reading. So I'm definitely going to
That's great.
pick
Well,
that
if you
up.
pick up a copy, I'm sure Mum will sign it. So
Oh, you know what? I got to get my
100%.
signed copy. That's right. I know Chris Phillips.
That's it. I think
Mm,
you have an in. I think you
yeah,
can get those signed. Yeah.
I can email her. That's right.
That's
So,
it.
last question, and this has been absolutely amazing. Um,
Thank you.
what, and if you can't do all five, just how many you can do?
Okay.
What five things would you tell a newcomer coming into this business as an actor
Mm.
or someone who is getting into producing? What five things would you tell them?
I would probably start with, and it's something I have already said before, not obviously on here right now, but I have said um, out there, which is that create, as in create your own. So if you're trying to get into something and you're trying to navigate a new area, so even if you're an actor, you're trying to get into producing or producer and you want whatever it may be. Um, I think, yeah, you need to create a lot of your own things. So that can be something as simple as we are seeing has become such a huge trend now of skits on social media. Obviously, it was big a few years back on like apps like Vine, but now TikTok's brought that up to resurgence in Instagram the last like couple years. So you're seeing actors, you're seeing creators who are literally just doing skits at home. You don't need anything fancy. Use your phone. We all have some sort of a device now these days, generally. Just put it out there. That doesn't mean it has to gain traction and you have to get to like 10 million followers, but you've got something, right? So whether you're creating something on a digital, smaller scale of that, or whether you're going and creating a short film, a feature, whatever it may be, I would say create something. Give yourself your own opportunity. So that's the one thing I would say. Two, I would say you definitely need to have like a thick skin. water off a duck's back type of mentality, and be able to, there are a lot of the rejections that we spoke about. Everyone already knows that, but I think some people definitely lose themselves within that. I've seen people definitely lose themselves within even Los Angeles. And it's kind of disappointing because you see someone like so spirited or someone so ready and just kind of get taken through like the motions of being let down or with the wrong crowd or whatever it may be. So definitely have to be, I think, headstrong and have like a good, backbone. So that would be 2. 3, I would say don't always just be based on don't always, I guess, take things from the monetary value. Obviously,
Mhm.
yes, we all need to pay bills. Yes, we're a starving artist type of industry for sure. And we all understand that. But I would say just don't be driven just by the dollar either. Of course, it's important and essential, but just prioritizing that and like chasing fame or chasing just the financial side won't get you very far for very long. And if that's what you are doing, I feel like you may need to find another profession or another field, because there's going to be a lot of times where you don't have that in this industry, and that can't be just your driving force. So I would say that. 4, adversity makes you, doesn't break you. And that's something I've spoken about before as well, in the sense that no matter whatever, that could be anything for each individual person. It could be something as simplistic as experiences you've had. It could be something as important and essential as your diversity, ethnicity, or anything like that. But whatever the adversity is you're facing currently, or the lack of representation and the lack of opportunities extended, don't let it break you. So it'll make you, not break you, and just keep going, keep forging a path. Like we spoke about earlier, Floyd, basically don't take no for an answer by any means. And then for the last and final one, I would say, oh gosh, there's so many things, but I would say working actively and getting experience is going to be the most valuable thing. I think it's well and good and absolutely amazing, everyone who goes and studies and does some sort of, it could be anything, degree, bachelor's, course, whatever it is. Those things are essentials too. But for the person who may not be able to do that, or for the person who doesn't know where to begin, actual hands-on experience is going to serve you so far. It's kind of like how people say, if you have life experience or if you're street smart, that can still take someone so much further away in life than you school smart, right? So yeah, I think anything hands-on you can do, anything to build the portfolio, anything to build your relationships, your network, all of that is going to be obviously more essential in the long run as well. And you're gaining that first-hand experience.
Those were 5 absolutely phenomenal tips. So,
I
ladies and
think you are
gentlemen,
so.
those were phenomenal. And if you don't listen to any other part of the podcast, listen to the last 5 minutes so you can get those 5 tips on how to navigate. And that's for anything in life, not just the film business. You could take those 5 things and incorporate that into your daily life. And I
Mhm.
and I think you'll do okay. But the one that you talked about with people losing themselves,
Right.
a really good friend of mine, Danita Patterson, she's phenomenal. Television producer. She
Mhm.
talked about identity theft
Okay.
and how oftentimes when a lot of people move to Los Angeles, they allow their identities to be stolen.
Mhm.
Not in a way where they're taking your credit cards or anything like
No, I
that.
get you.
And when she said that was so, I was like, wow. And you kind of just touched on that too. You lose yourself because you're chasing a thing, and
Mhm.
you end up losing yourself in the chasing. But Michaela, those were some phenomenal words, and thank you so much. And this was such a pleasure.
Thank
I
you.
had so much
Likewise.
fun talking to you, and you definitely have to come back. Um, Hopefully, you and your mom can come back, and we
That'd be
can talk
great.
about Magic Wars Saga. I'll bother you guys after filming is done
Sounds good.
because I know how intense it can be on a film set. So where can people find you?
People can find me all on social media. And of course, obviously, if you want to peruse and look at anything further on my website, so it's just my name, MikaelaPhillips.com, and then same on Instagram. It's just my name, Mikaela Phillips.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here, MiKaelaPhillips.com. Please make sure that you follow this amazing young lady. And if you like the podcast, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and the Apple Podcast channel. And make sure you go and check out Michaela's work on Amazon. And
Thank you.
then do yourself another favor and go on, let's see, Barnes and Nobles or
Yes,
Amazon and
yes.
pick up Chris Phillip, award-winning international best-selling author. Pick up those books. So you want to do all of that. But any last words? Any last words?
Oh no, honestly, it was just a pleasure, and I think it was nice to really delve into quite a few different topics and conversations that aren't always spoken about. You know, people love to do just the very polite kind of topic surface level, and it was nice to dive into something that it does, in a sense, affect everyone. It affects, like we said, the viewer. It affects the people making it, and we are looking at a large scope of things that you and I spoke about. So it was really fun. So thanks for having me, Floyd.
Well, thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Again, thank you so much for joining myself and Michaela on a conversation with. And as always, love this like a hobby, but treat it like a business. Have an absolutely amazing, amazing night.